My name is Jillian A. Linscott, 27 years old, and the moment my boyfriend told me he might spend the night at another woman's apartment just because it was convenient, I realized I wasn't losing him. I had already been replaced. The cracks didn't start with a fight. They never do. They started with silence, the kind that slips into your relationship so quietly you almost miss it. The kind where the person sitting next to you feels just slightly further away than they used to. Ethan used to laugh easily, used to look at me like I was the center of whatever room we were in. Lately, he looked at his phone more than he looked at me. It wasn't obvious at first, just small things. A notification that made him smile, a message he answered a little too quickly, a subtle shift of his body so I couldn't see the screen. I told myself I was imagining it. I didn't want to be that woman. The insecure one. The suspicious one. We had been together for 2 years. We talked about the future. Real things. A dog. A bigger apartment. Weekend trips that turned into something more permanent. But something had changed. Not loudly. Quietly. And quiet is always harder to confront. It was a Tuesday evening when everything started to surface. I was sitting at the kitchen counter scrolling through apartment listings, talking about sunlight and balcony space, imagining something bigger than what we had. Ethan was across from me, chopping vegetables. At least, that's what he was supposed to be doing. "Hey," he said suddenly. "There's a party Saturday." I looked up. "What kind of party?" "Rooftop. Tasha's place." That name. Tasha. I'd heard it before. A few times. Casually. "She's from your gym, right?" "Yeah." He shrugged. "She just moved into this new building." I nodded. "Sounds fun. What's the plan?" "You can come?" He said it quickly. Too quickly. "But honestly, you might not enjoy it." There it was. The qualifier. The gentle exclusion disguised as consideration. Why wouldn't I enjoy it? It's just... He hesitated. "Different crowd." I smiled slightly. "I can handle different." He laughed, but it didn't feel real. "It'll probably go late. And her place is right there." Then he said it. Like it was nothing. "So if I crash there, don't make it a big deal, okay?" The knife stopped moving. The air shifted. Everything inside me went still. "At Tasha's?" I asked. He nodded. "It's practical." I stared at him for a moment. Processing. Replaying. "On her couch?" "Obviously," he said, already defensive. "It's not like anything's going to happen." That wasn't the point. And we both knew it. I set my phone down slowly. "It makes me uncomfortable," I said. Simple. Clear. No accusation. Just truth. His expression changed immediately. "Oh my God. Really?" "It's not about jealousy," I added. "It's about respect. For me. For us." He shook his head. "It's 2023, Jillian. Men and women can be friends." "I agree," I said. "But friends don't usually have sleepovers when one of them is in a relationship." That hit him. I could see it. But instead of understanding, he leaned into it. "So what? You think I'm going to cheat on you?" "No," I said. "I think you're choosing something that crosses a line." That was it. That was the moment. The shift. His eyes changed, from defensive to dismissive. "Well," he said flatly, "if I want to stay at a woman friend's place after a party, that's my choice." He held my gaze, waiting, testing. "Trust me. Or don't." Silence. But this time, it wasn't confusing. It was clear. Painfully clear. Because in that moment, I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit. He wasn't asking for trust. He was demanding permission to disrespect me and call it independence. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw someone who had already made his choice, and suddenly, so had I. "Okay," I said quietly, and everything inside me went still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't try to convince him. That was the part that confused him the most. Okay? He repeated, narrowing his eyes. That's it? I nodded once. Yeah, that's it. For a second, he just stood there, waiting for the rest, waiting for the emotional reaction he expected. The pushback, the insecurity, the version of me that would try to negotiate for his attention. It didn't come. Jillian, don't do that thing where you pretend you're fine when you're not. I almost smiled. I'm not pretending. That made him uncomfortable. I could see it. Because if I wasn't reacting, then he didn't have control over the situation anymore. He grabbed his jacket, irritated now. You're blowing this out of proportion, am I? Yes. It's just a party. And a sleepover. And a boundary you don't respect. He rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. There it was again. That word. The one people use when they don't want to take responsibility. Okay, I said again, softer this time. Not agreeing. Closing. And something in my tone must have registered, because he hesitated. What does that mean? It means I understand. Understand what? That you've already made your decision. Silence. He didn't like that, because I wasn't accusing him. I was naming it, and naming something removes all the space for excuses. That's not fair, he said quickly. I haven't done anything. I nodded slowly. I know. And that's the problem. He frowned. What does that even mean? It means you don't think you've done anything wrong, I said. And that tells me everything I need to know. For a moment, he didn't respond, because he didn't have a counter for that. So he did what he always did when he felt cornered. He shut it down. Whatever. He grabbed his keys. I'm not having this conversation. And then he left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. And just like that, the relationship ended. Not officially, not out loud, but emotionally. It was already over. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after that. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was honest. Like everything that had been quietly building had finally surfaced. I didn't cry. That surprised me. Instead, I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and started packing. Not everything, just the things that were mine, the things I had before him, the things I knew I would still have after. Clothes, documents, my laptop, a few personal items that actually meant something. The bag I had hidden behind a stack of sweaters was already half full. I had started this days ago, quietly, without fully admitting to myself why. Now I knew. I moved through the apartment slowly, touching things, looking at them differently. The couch, the pictures, the shared spaces that had once felt like ours. Now they just looked temporary, like something I had been borrowing. On the kitchen table, I placed my key. Then I grabbed a notepad, wrote 4 words. I've chosen don't. I stared at it for a moment. Not emotional, just certain. Then I left. No second thoughts. No looking back. Because I knew something now that I hadn't understood before. Staying would have been the harder choice. Leaving was just the honest one. Ben opened the door without asking questions. He took one look at me, the bag, the silence, and stepped aside. Come in. I dropped the bag near the couch and sat down. The weight of everything didn't hit all at once. It settled slowly, like something heavy being set down after a long time. You okay? He asked, handing me a mug. I will be, I said. And for the first time, that didn't feel like something I had to convince myself of. Later that night, I opened my phone, scrolled to his name, blocked it, then his number, then everything else. Shared accounts, apps, cloud storage, anything that tied us together, except one thing, the messaging app. I didn't block him there. I muted it, archived it, not because I wanted to hear from him, because I wanted to see what came next. Because sometimes, Watching someone unravel tells you more than anything they say. The first voice note came the next morning. I didn't listen to it right away. I waited until I was alone, then pressed play. Really? His voice was sharp, annoyed. You're just going to leave? I leaned against the wall, listening. You're being immature, Jillian. It was a couch. Nothing happened. I closed my eyes. There it was, minimizing, dismissing, reducing everything to something small enough to ignore. I deleted it, not because it hurt, because it didn't matter. The second one came that night. Different tone, less anger, more control. Okay, I get it. You're upset, but you didn't even talk to me. I thought we were better than this. I almost laughed. Because we were? At least. I thought we were. I deleted that one too. By the third day, the tone shifted again. And this time, I heard something new. Not anger. Not control. Uncertainty. Jillian, come on. We can fix this. I looked at the message for a long time before deleting it. Not because I doubted my decision, because I understood something clearly now. He didn't want to fix anything. He wanted things to go back to how they were, where my boundaries were negotiable, where his choices didn't have consequences, where I stayed, no matter what. That version of me was gone, and I wasn't coming back. The messages didn't stop. They just evolved. That was the unsettling part. It wasn't chaos. It was progression. Like he was working through something step by step, and I was just watching it happen from a distance I had created. The fourth voice note came 3 days later. I didn't rush to play it. I didn't feel that pull anymore, that need to know, that urgency. I waited until evening, sat by the window in Ben's spare room, the city lights flickering outside like they had their own quiet rhythm, and then I pressed play. Okay. His voice was different again, less sharp, less controlled. I shouldn't have said it like that. A pause. I didn't mean to make it sound like you didn't matter. I leaned my head back against the wall, listening, not reacting. But you just left. You didn't even try to fight for us. There it was, again. Not what he did, not what he chose, but what I didn't do, what I didn't fight for. I let the message finish, then deleted it. Because I understood something now. He wasn't asking for accountability. He was asking for negotiation. And I wasn't negotiating anymore. The next few days felt strange, quiet, but not heavy, not like before. I moved into my new place at the end of that week. A small studio by the river. Nothing dramatic. But it had light, space, and most importantly, it had no history. The first night there, I sat on the floor with a takeout box and a glass of water, surrounded by unopened boxes, and realized something. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved either. I was still. Like everything had finally stopped moving long enough for me to breathe. The fifth message came that night. I almost didn't listen, but something about the timing made me curious. So I pressed play. I saw your note. His voice was quieter now, more uncertain. I've chosen don't? What does that even mean? I didn't move, didn't answer, because the truth was, he already knew. You're really just walking away? A long pause. I thought you'd calm down. I closed my eyes. That part, that assumption, that this was temporary, that I would come back once I cooled off, that everything would reset. I miss you, he said, soft, honest, for the first time. The apartment feels empty. I keep thinking I'll hear you come in. That almost got to me. Almost. But not enough. Because missing me wasn't the same as choosing me. And that had been the problem all along. Then came the part that sealed it. You're acting like I cheated. I didn't. It was just a party. I exhaled slowly. There it was. Again. minimizing, reducing, rewriting, still not seeing it, still not understanding. The message ended the same way. We can fix this. Fix. That word again. Like this was something simple. Like all it required was effort. But effort without understanding doesn't fix anything. It just repeats it. I didn't delete that message right away. Not because I was reconsidering. Because I wanted to sit with it. To understand what I felt. And what I felt was clarity. Not anger. Not hurt. Just distance. A few days later, I got a text instead of a voice note. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time, then typed back. No. No explanation. No emotion. Just truth. He didn't respond. And that was the moment I realized something important. He wasn't the one holding on to this anymore. I wasn't either. It was just over. Not because we decided together, because I decided alone. And sometimes, that's enough. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, sat by the window, watched the river move, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about him, not even once. That's when I knew. Not that I was healing, but that I had already healed enough to let go, and letting go was the only thing that mattered. Time didn't rush forward. It stretched, quietly, softly, without asking for attention. Weeks passed after that last message. No more voice notes, no more texts, no more attempts to fix something that had already ended. And that silence, it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. I settled into my new space slowly, not all at once. One piece at a time. A chair that didn't remind me of him, a lamp that felt warmer, a blanket I chose just because I liked it, not because it matched anything we had before. Every decision felt small, but together, they built something steady, something mine. Work became easier too. Not because the workload changed, because I wasn't splitting myself in half anymore. I wasn't carrying someone else's expectations on top of my own. I started speaking up more in meetings, taking on projects I used to avoid. Not because I needed to prove something, but because I finally trusted my own judgment. That was new, and it showed. A month later, my manager pulled me aside. "We're considering you for a promotion." I blinked. "Me?" He smiled. "You've been different lately." In a good way. I didn't tell him why. I just nodded. And for the first time, I didn't doubt it. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment again, back against the wall, dog curled up beside me, and thought about how much had changed. Not outside, inside. Because the biggest shift wasn't leaving him, it was staying gone. That takes a different kind of strength. The kind no one talks about. The kind that shows up in quiet moments when no one's watching. The kind that says, "Don't go back." A few weeks later, I ran into him again. Not at the same coffee shop. Not in the same neighborhood. Just randomly. On a street corner. He saw me this time. Immediately. And I saw the moment recognition hit him. Then something else. Hesitation. He didn't walk away. He stepped toward me. "Jillian." I stopped. Not because I wanted to. Because I wasn't running anymore. "Hey." He looked different. Less certain. Less confident. Like the version of himself I knew had been worn down. "Can we talk?" I considered it. Not emotionally. Practically. Then nodded. 5 minutes. We stood there. Cars passing. People moving around us. Life continuing like nothing had changed. "I messed up," he said. Straight to it this time. No build-up. No deflection. "I know," I said. He flinched slightly. "I thought I could do whatever I wanted and you'd still be there." That was the first honest thing he had said. I wasn't going to be. "I see that now." He looked down, then back at me. "I ruined something good." "Yes." No softness, no cruelty. Just truth. Silence settled between us. Different this time. Not tense. Not unfinished. Complete. I miss you, he said. I know. And you don't miss me. I paused. Not because I didn't know the answer, because I wanted to be honest. I miss who I thought you were. That landed. Harder than anything else. Because it wasn't an attack. It was a realization. And realizations are harder to argue with than accusations. He nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense. We stood there for another moment, neither of us reaching for something to say. Because there wasn't anything left. I hope you figure things out, I said. I am, he replied. I think I needed to lose you to understand it. Maybe, but that wasn't my responsibility anymore. I'm glad you're working on it, I said. And I meant it. Then I stepped back. Take care, Ethan. He didn't try to stop me this time. Didn't ask for more. Didn't push. He just nodded. You too. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No tears. No second chances. Just closure. Real closure. The kind you don't have to question later. That night, I sat by the window again. Dog resting beside me. City lights reflecting in the glass. And realized something. Closure isn't something someone gives you, it's something you decide. And I had already decided. Long before that conversation ever happened. 6 months doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're rebuilding yourself, it's everything. By the time winter settled in, my life no longer felt like something I was recovering from. It felt like something I had stepped into. Fully. Without hesitation. The promotion came through quietly. No big announcement. No dramatic moment. Just a meeting. A handshake. And a new title that I accepted without questioning whether I deserved it. Because for the first time, I didn't need permission to believe in myself. My apartment changed too. Not in big ways. In small ones that mattered more. Plants on the windowsill. Books stacked beside the couch. A second dog bed in the corner because somehow I had adopted another rescue without planning to. The space felt alive. Not curated. Not shared. Just real. Ben called it my after version. I called it peace. We still talked sometimes. About nothing. About everything. But his name no longer carried weight. Just familiarity. Like a place I used to visit. Not somewhere I lived. One evening, I found myself standing in the middle of my apartment doing absolutely nothing. No music. No distractions. Just standing. And it hit me. I hadn't thought about him all day. Not once. Not even in the background. That used to feel impossible. Now it felt normal. I smiled. Not because something had ended, because something had finally settled. A few weeks later, I got a message. Not from him. From a mutual friend. She's with him now. I knew exactly who she meant. Tasha. I stared at the message for a second, waiting for a reaction. Something. Anything. There wasn't one. No jealousy. No anger. No curiosity. Just nothing. And that told me everything. It wasn't indifference. It was completion. That chapter didn't need revisiting. It didn't need closure. It had already given me everything it was going to. The lesson, the boundary, the clarity. That was enough. Later that night, I took my dogs for a walk. Cold air, quiet streets, the kind of stillness that used to feel lonely. Now, it felt full. I stopped at the river, watched the water move, and thought about everything that had led me here. Not the relationship, not him, me. The version of me who stayed quiet, who explained too much, who adjusted herself to fit someone else's comfort. She wasn't gone. She had just grown into someone who didn't need to do that anymore. I sat on a bench for a while, hands tucked into my sleeves, breathing in the cold air, and realized something simple. I wasn't proud of leaving. I was proud of not going back. That's the part people don't talk about. Walking away is one moment. Staying away, That's the real work. That's where you find out who you actually are. A year later, I ran into him one last time. Not in passing, not by accident. At a work event. He saw me across the room, didn't approach, didn't try. Just nodded, and I nodded back. That was it. No conversation, no tension, no unfinished pieces. Just two people who had once shared something, now standing in completely different lives. And for the first time, it felt right, because we weren't connected anymore. Not emotionally, not mentally, not even through memory. We were just separate, and that separation wasn't sad. It was necessary. My name is Jillian A. Linscott. I once loved someone who asked me to choose between trusting him and respecting myself. I chose myself. Not because it was easy, but because it was the only choice that didn't cost me everything. And in the end, that choice didn't just end a relationship. It gave me something far more valuable. A life that was finally, completely my own.